Hi, I'm Lynne, soft speaker of fairy tales. And, I do have other stories on here, and many of them are for children. And I know that even the adults like this, but this is what I show when I'm reading stories for the children. But today I'll be reading the intro part to the story that I just read earlier today for this book by Carolyn Emmerich. And by permission, I'm reading her book out loud to you. And earlier I read the story part. Now I'm going to read, especially to the adults, Scandinavian cultural values in society and folklore. But you'll find this is very interesting. And especially if you've always thought that fairy tales were only about girls and ladies, princes, princesses, and queens. Okay, we have our folk hero, fairy tale hero, Peer Gynt, fighting the trolls. When I first read Peer Gynt, it was many years ago when I was less familiar with the fairy tale genre. Apart from the obvious tales we're all culturally familiar with, I was very interested in the concept of the male protagonist in fairy tales, since we typically only see male figures riding in at the end to rescue female protagonists in the fairy tales popularized by Disney. What struck me immediately about Peer Gynt was that the protagonist, of the same name as the title, overcomes his obstacles without any supernatural assistance at all. I wondered if this would be the common theme in fairy tales centered on male figures, and if this is how these tales differed from female-centered fairy tales. In other words, was this reflective of the views on gender in the past, that men relied on their own ability while women depended on assistance? As I've read on, I found that there are many fairy tales about male figures, and many of them do have supernatural help along their journeys. I often even found fairy tales wherein the male figure has his own fairy godmother who helps him along his way. While mulling it over, it occurred to me that Peer Gynt's encounters out on the fjord are an inherently Scandinavian experience. Scandinavian folklore is rife with tales of trolls, and are quite frightening, and who typically appear in regions of extreme nature. The geography and the climate of Scandinavia can be incredibly difficult. Not only are winters very harsh, but the landscape is often not hospitable. In fact, this was one of the reasons that the Vikings were motivated to explore and settle lands outside of their home, to seek out arable land and in a better climate for farming. Let me show you the picture I had to pass up. This is Scandinavian fairy tale illustrated by Kay Nielsen. It's kind of a dark picture, so hope you can see that detail. Great painting. Here's another one, Ice Fishing in Norway by Nico Jungmann. When looking at Old Norse mythology, as well as the folklore, and even some ancient cultural traditions, we find that survival is more difficult for these people than it was for the more southerly Europeans who lived in temperate climates. And this is reflected quite strongly in this tale. Here Gynt is a hunter who goes up into the fjords and is struck by a frightening encounter. When that first encounter is dealt with, the trolls of the fjord begin to play tricks on him and taunt him. Pardon me. This speaks to the very real dangers that would have been faced by anyone climbing the fjords alone. And when out in the wilderness, all alone for periods of time, your mind may start playing tricks on you as well. Note that the trolls misidentify animals when they call out in the story. This speaks to the mind games that can occur when alone in the wilderness. And here's a picture of a fjord. Bondus Glacier, Hardanger Fjord by A. Heaton. That's what a fjord looks like. I hope I'm saying that word right. Here's Waterfall on Hardanger Fjord by A. Heaton Cooper. And that is another theme that is found often in broader European folklore of the wilderness, and it seems to be found more often in the fairy tales featuring male figures. Men would have ventured farther from home more often than women. They would have been huntsmen, woodsmen, or traveled seeking work. Women did travel as well, and we see this in this tale that Peer Gynt encounters dairymaids also up on the fjord. But men tend to be more often the figures who encountered taunting and malicious supernatural beings in the wilderness who play tricks on them or make them lose their way. There are similar themes in tales of men at the sea as well. Returning to specifically Scandinavian themes, when Peer Gynt is confronted by frightening obstacles, he has only himself and his hunting rifle to depend on for his survival. Keeping your wits about you and having the intelligence and ability to survive would have been key traits in Scandinavian society by necessity. This impacted Scandinavian ethnoculture in a very real way. Ethnoculture, by definition, is the blend of ethnicity and culture. Scandinavians have long been known for their height, their strength, and their intelligence since very ancient times. In fact, the earliest mentions of the Norsemen in history, they are described almost godlike for how they towered above men and were so fierce in battle. In an environment where only the fittest survived, this is biological Darwinism in action. However, we need to survive in a land with harsh winters. The need to survive in a land with harsh winters nurtured other aspects of culture that turn up in this tale as well. The concept of hospitality is found all around the world, especially in difficult environments. The Bedouins of the Arabian deserts are known for their hospitality customs, and for the same reasons hospitality was very important in Norse culture. Concept of a hunter's or shepherd's hut that's free for use for anyone who needs it is still found in some rural areas today, especially in rough environments like Alaska or the Russian taiga. But in general, we have evolved into a more individualized society where some people might have their own family cabin in the woods where they go hunting, but they would not expect a stranger to let themselves in. It does happen. Old Norse society understood that the wanderer at your door late one snowy night could be one day you or your kin. So it was customary to offer food and shelter to weary travelers. We see Peer Gynt use a communal hut and also arrive to ask for hospitality at a stranger's home in this tale. Here's Lodge on Ose Fjord by A. Heaton Cooper. One more page. Another way that this concern for the community is represented in this story is Peer Gynt's concern for the dairymaids he sees out on the fjord. He spots them a ways off and is portrayed as having a strong concern for their safety. It does not appear that he knows them personally, but this is just the way a man of honor would have operated in this society. So, in summation, these cultural aspects, as they are demonstrated in this tale, are what I personally appreciate very much about it. Peer Gynt is a strong and capable man. He is self-directed, going out alone to do what needs doing. He is self-reliant and capable. Obstacles present themselves, and he handles them himself. As a man, he is conscious of the women in his vicinity and has a mind for their safety. In short, Peer Gynt is a man of integrity and strength, and these are admirable masculine traits that perhaps have not been as valued in recent years as they once were. For this, I think this is a special tale. This tale was found in the Norwegian fairy book by Clara Strøby, 1922. This book, like other folklore collections, is comprised of stories the author picked, retold, and curated from their sources of folklore. Not originally written by the author. I remain true to the stories as I find them, but revise the language to flow more fluidly to the modern ear and apply artistic license if necessary. Just like I do. I am one story that you can find on my channel. Now I'll be returning next time with the story of Cinderella. I know it says Aschenputtel. Aschenputtel? I'm not sure how to pronounce that. But this is the taken from the story originally done by, I think, Hans Christian Andersen. So, yeah. Anyway, I'll be telling you all about that in my next stream. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again on Sunday or the next Tuesday. Bye. Have a good night.